yesterday when I talked about what I was going to be talking about today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. By the way, I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Monday, the 16th of August of 2021. Welcome whether you're coming on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. I said yesterday when I was talking about what I was going to talk about today, which I titled Truth to Autism, that this is actually a wider, broader subject than really just the autism part of things. But I also want to point out that it's particularly important when you talk about autism. It's very important. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk about truth to autism today. That seems like maybe an odd little subject. Let me go ahead and read my notes and help you to understand what I'm talking about a little bit here. In my way of looking at the world, truth is a pretty significant thing. Thing is, though, it's even more important when dealing with autism. When you deal with normal people, as a rule, it almost always pays to be truthful. I'm not saying there's never an exception to that, but in my view, such times are quite rare. When dealing with autism, though, it seems like it's hard on that autistic person to deal with the truth lots of times. I didn't put lots of times, but it's not always hard to deal with. Even so, in my opinion, it's even more important to do that where they're concerned. Lots of times, something said to an autistic person is going to stick more than with others. It's true that as they get older, that's less the case. My son will argue things with me when I drop a truth bomb. How do I handle that? Be consistent. Just because he doesn't like or want to believe the truth doesn't mean you don't stick to your guns. All of this said, when I'm wrong, it's equally important that I acknowledge my error. And we know I'm never wrong, right? Right. Yeah, no, that's not the case for anybody wondering. For my son, little is more important than trustworthiness. Without being truthful, it's hard to be someone upon whom he can rely. I know this is the case. I know. This is the case across the board. That said, it's especially important for autistic folks, at least it is for my son. Got a plus sign in there somehow. That's fine. Okay, so look, there are a couple of things. My son likes to make up stories. One of his current stories that he really likes is about how his, quote, great-great-grandfather, who's more greats back than that, for whom he's named, was rich and famous and all of these wonderful things. And the guy he's talking about was, from everything I can tell, a great guy. And he was a man of principle and so forth, man of principle, man of character, and he seems to have been a wonderful individual, but he was never rich as far as I know. He's not poor, I don't guess, though there probably were times in his life when that would have been a reasonable thing to say about him, that he was actually poor. But the point is, he was never a rich man, but my son insists that he's modeling himself after that individual, after his predecessor. And I'm here to tell you there are two realities. One, he's not modeling himself after his predecessor and couldn't possibly know what it's like to do that. And I'm not hard on him about that. Over the course of time, more and more, we'll get the chance to talk about that, and I'll get the chance to discuss that with him. But the second thing is, he tells other people what he tells me, and he's telling them things that are not true. And it's important for me to correct that record. Not because it's so super important that people know or don't know that my forebearer was not rich, but because Garrett can be embarrassed by my son, Garrett, can be embarrassed by his own activities when he finds out that what he says is not the case. Now look, I mess up all the time, and by the way, there's one thing I've learned that it's very important to be able to say, and not just with my son, but with anybody. And it is the plain and simple expression, I don't know. If you can honestly say, I don't know, you're in a much better place than if you can't. If you have to be right, if you have to know, then you're going to find when you don't, it's going to be extremely uncomfortable, and you're going to have to make up stories in order to cover the reality. And trust me when I tell you, that's not a fun thing to deal with. I've been there. I've done that. I'll be the first to acknowledge when I was younger, I had to know everything. I hope for the most part that I've outgrown that, and I'm willing to say that I don't know. Point of all of this is that's part of truthfulness too. part of truthfulness is to say, well, I tell my son I'm weak, and he now says, well, Dad is weak. Yet he sees me do things where I exhibit strength far beyond his own. That's not to say I'm super strong. It's to say right now he's quite young, and he's got a bunch of growing to do before he'll get to the point where he can do things that adults can do as a rule. So it's not so much that I'm so fantastic, and I'm not trying to say that, but my point in saying I'm weak is to tell him that by comparison to a great many people, I am weak. I'm getting weaker as I get older, and that's just reality. It happens to a lot of us, right? But my point here is to constantly be truthful to him about what I do and what I say. So when I say I'm weak and he says you're weak, I go, yep, because I want him to know that I wasn't lying to him when I said what I said, that I was telling him the truth. Now, that doesn't mean, like I say, that he won't experience and maybe say that I'm strong and maybe come to a different conclusion or opinion than the one that I expressed to him about my current strength, which, by the way, mine is more or less based on metrics. I can see what people can lift and what people can throw and so forth, and I can see that I'm not a particularly strong individual. And in many senses, I never was. Let's be fair about that. In many senses, I was never all that strong to begin with, but the reality is I have lost a lot of strength as I've gotten older and so forth, and it makes it so that I'm less strong, and I want him to know that my reality based on metrics is that but again, what I want to make sure is that I present to him a trustworthy individual. And I'll just tell you right now, that's been a valuable, quote, tool in my arsenal when I deal with him, is to be somebody who tells the truth, even when he doesn't like it. And like I say, we'll argue. Garrett, your great-great-great-great-grandfather wasn't rich as far as I know. Yes, he was. No, he wasn't. Yes, he was. No, he wasn't. Look, Garrett, I don't know, but I don't believe he was, right? The point is that I see instances where people did things. And by the way, deception, and this to me comes to lying as well, can happen in actions just as well as it can in words, right? When you have a person who deceives someone by doing something like buying friends for them because they're autistic or whatever, that's really bad. You may not think it is, but that's really bad. When you do that to your child, what you do is you convince them that who you are right now is acceptable to get you this friend without me pulling strings in order to make that happen. And that's bad. That deception, whether you like it or not, is a lie. And I get that you feel for your child. But you have to make it so that your child is aware that they have to learn to do certain things in order to have people accept them as a part of society. My son doesn't like society as a rule, but he has to know, look, this is the truth of it. This is where society expects you to be in order to be a part of who they are. And if you don't like that, you better get used to the idea that you're not going to be one of those people who fits in well with a crowd, which is not, by the way, necessarily a bad thing. We all act like that's a big deal, and it's just not. I never fit in well with the crowd. And the thing about it is it's hard sometimes because I do get lonely, but the reality is I'm so much happier being myself than trying to fit into other people's molds. But the point of all of this, like I say, is this. If you deceive, telling your child things like, oh, this girl likes you, and the way the girl likes him is if you put money in her hand, then you've just done your child a horrible disservice in the process. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's the reality. And that deception will cost your child, not you, if that child is autistic particularly, but really pretty much any child, right? And this is why I say this is wider scope, because much of what I say really applies to everybody. Everybody. When you tell a kid, oh, you've got these friends and you're buying the friends for the kid, that's not really friends, boys and girls. That's not what that is. And so truthfulness is exceptionally important, and that includes in how you act as much as in what you say. All right, I need to go ahead and start wrapping this up now. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Monday, the 16th of August of 2021. Tomorrow will be Tuesday, the 17th of August of 2021. Welcome to, and thank you for coming along. For everybody who's here on Rumble on the podcast and on YouTube, again, Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a positive Rumble or the boxing glove sometimes, depending on where you're getting it. On Rumble, you can give me a negative Rumble if you want to do that as well. and where I prefer that you don't, that doesn't mean that you can't. And again, you can give me a thumbs up or a like or a thumbs down or a dislike on YouTube. But on both Rumble and YouTube, if you choose to give me a bad rating for whatever reason, I'd really love to know why, because I'm really trying to produce content that I think will be helpful and useful to others. You may not find it so, and that may be why you give me a negative Rumble or whatever, and I get that. And I'm with that. It doesn't upset me. I just like to know what's going on there. Today's subject has been truth to autism, and tomorrow we're going to talk about an odd sort of a little subject that I don't think a lot of people have thought about very well. It's corporate alms. And I'll explain exactly why I chose the title that I did in tomorrow's Daily Summation. But I hope you're doing okay today. It is the beginning of the work week for those folks of us that work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. School has started back in my little neck of the woods, so my boy is at school, and hopefully he's having a good day today. Hope that you're having a good day as well, and I hope that I will see you again on tomorrow's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Monday, August 16th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.